It began on a quiet morning in Washington, D.C., the kind that felt too calm before something big breaks. The sun glimmered faintly off the White House dome, but the air carried a strange tension. Whispers in the press room, murmurs in political circles, and one name passing from mouth to mouth with increasing urgency: Kennedy. Senator John Kennedy had never been one to mince words. Known for his sharp wit, folksy charm, and unflinching honesty, he had made a reputation out of saying what others were too afraid to utter. But no one expected that this time, he would take aim at one of the most prominent figures in the nation, First Lady Jill Biden. The moment came during a televised town hall meeting that was supposed to be routine. Cameras rolled, reporters scribbled notes, and the crowd leaned forward in anticipation. Jill Biden was expected to speak about education reform, a subject close to her heart as a lifelong teacher. But when Kennedy was given the floor, the tone shifted and the air thickened. "Mrs. Biden," he began, his Louisiana drawl slow and deliberate, "the American people deserve honesty. And lately, it seems like what they're getting instead is a performance." The audience fell silent. Jill straightened her shoulders, clearly taken aback. Kennedy didn't raise his voice, but every word that followed landed with the weight of truth, sharpened by conviction. He talked about the struggling schools across the nation, about teachers working 2 jobs, and parents losing faith in the education system. He contrasted lavish federal spending and symbolic gestures with the harsh reality of rural classrooms falling apart. "You visit schools with cameras flashing, Mrs. Biden," he said. "But have you ever sat with a teacher who hasn't been paid in 3 months? Have you stood in a cafeteria where children eat lunch that's barely edible?" "I have, and I've met the people who are losing hope while politicians smile for the evening news." The audience gasped. Jill's composure trembled for the briefest second before she regained it. She responded calmly, defending her work, her visits, her programs. But Kennedy wasn't finished. He reached into his folder and pulled out a series of letters and handwritten notes from teachers across the country. "These aren't political talking points," he said, his voice soft now, almost sorrowful. "These are pleas, real letters from real people. One from a teacher in Mississippi says she spends her own paycheck to buy pencils. Another from West Virginia says her classroom roof leaks so badly they teach under umbrellas. These folks don't want symbolism, Mrs. Biden, they want help." The tension in the room turned electric. Cameras zoomed in. Jill Biden, clearly emotional, blinked back tears. The event, meant to be an easy PR moment, had turned into a national reckoning, and Kennedy had lit the spark. Later that night, every news network replayed the footage. Social media exploded. Some called Kennedy cruel, others hailed him a hero. But beneath the noise, something deeper was stirring, a conversation that America had long avoided. Days passed. The White House issued statements defending the First Lady's efforts, insisting that her work was genuine and impactful. But Kennedy's challenge had forced an undeniable spotlight onto the nation's failing school system. The issue was no longer about politics, it was about people. And then, something unexpected happened. A week later, Jill Biden appeared on national television, not in a glittering ballroom or at a political rally, but in a modest elementary school in a struggling part of Detroit. There were no reporters, no handlers, no rehearsed remarks, just children, teachers, and the smell of chalk and cafeteria food. She met with the principal, listened to teachers, sat on tiny chairs beside students, and stayed for hours after the cameras had gone. When asked why she was there, her answer was simple: because Kennedy was right. "If I'm going to fight for education, I need to see what's really happening." It was a turning point. In the weeks that followed, a bipartisan initiative was launched as the first serious nationwide education relief bill in decades. Kennedy co-sponsored it alongside senators from both sides of the aisle, and Jill Biden became one of its most visible champions. It wasn't about political victory anymore. It was about restoring faith in leadership, in compassion, in accountability. Months later, during a joint press conference, Kennedy and Jill Biden stood side by side. The crowd watched and awed. Two people who had once faced each other as adversaries now united by a shared purpose. Kennedy turned to her with a nod and said, "Sometimes, the truth hurts, but if we listen to it, it can heal more than it wounds." Jill smiled faintly. "And sometimes," she replied, "it takes being exposed to finally see what matters most." The story that had begun with confrontation ended with collaboration. It became a symbol of what America had nearly forgotten, that even in an era of division, truth and humility could still spark change. And for the millions watching at home, the message was clear and powerful: real leadership isn't about saving face. It's about facing the truth, and choosing to make things right.